uh, I wanted to talk about the mentoring relationship, which is so important to people's success. I know it's been a big part of your life, Frances Hesselbein, and by the way, she's awesome. I was fortunate to interview her as well, and so she's awesome. So anyway, the mentor thing.
Yes.
Men can be uncomfortable mentoring women, and boy, it feels like that might be an important thing to talk about. Yeah, how do we bridge this?
And, as I mentioned, I've had an extraordinary number of male mentors and female mentors. And the data says that since the Me Too movement, the unfortunate outcome is that men are 3 times more uncomfortable mentoring women. And so I really help them think this through. Number one, we need to have male mentors. And so the first is like, how can you set up a safe, comfortable, trusting environment? And so the men I advise, I say, you've got to have the same policies for meeting with female mentees as you would with male mentees. So if you're comfortable taking men to a sports event, you've got to do the same thing with women. If you're not comfortable bringing women to a sporting event, then you're going to have to meet both in the company cafeteria or at a coffee shop or something. And, wherever you feel more comfortable, public spaces, during work hours, then that's how you should meet both women and men. You can't have different rules for each other. That's where you can give off the wrong impression, even if you aren't doing the wrong thing. Second, you got to establish trust from the start. So I tell the mentee this as well as the mentor, which is listen closely and really ask about each other's experiences and how the barriers that they face at work have come up for them. I mean, it's really just saying that you're open to hearing whatever they have to say. If you're a senior leader and you want them to trust you, you have to be willing to listen to some hard stuff, maybe about your company culture. And then finally, I think just focusing on goals and skills, make this very, very developmental and specific to the business. Help them understand what skills are really important to the company right now and talk through the organization's goals or community's goals or whatever environment that you're in. I think that those 3 steps will relieve, I think, a lot of the anxiety about those situations.
Let's talk about touch. To me, it is so unfortunate that you can't hardly pat anybody on the back. You know what I mean? And let's just talk about physical touch. What is your advice? What are your thoughts about this?
And there's, I've been listening to a lot of panels on this too, and there's a lot of people that are much more, experienced and more data about it. But at the end of the day, I think it's one of those things where it has to be completely appropriate. And I think you have to be sensitive to somebody else's comfort level, right? So I think that for women, I was talking about the good girl thinking. For women, even the Girl Scouts now have a badge that tells them or teaching them to say no if they don't want like a family member touching them or whatever, that they don't have to be like, okay, and hug so awkwardly or kiss the weird, family member you've never met for 100 years. So I think for women, it's like if something makes you uncomfortable, make it known, make it clear, right? And then same thing if you're one that like, I'm a hugger all the time, but I guess I've started to do the I'm like going for a hug. I'm like, I'm a hugger. We just have to be sensitive to some people aren't comfortable, but at the same time, I think appropriate things like, just tapping someone on the shoulder or on the back, up here.
Upper.
Yeah, upper. I mean, obviously we know when it gets closer to more sensitive and private body parts, it becomes uncomfortable or misleading, even if it's an accident. I've driven the subway every day. So, I mean, I've encountered this in ways where you just know sometimes if somebody's just like, oh, moving on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just had a conversation with Jonathan Rosenberg. Google. He was a senior VP at Google, and now he advises the Alphabet management team. And they wrote a book about Bill Campbell, the coach.
Yes.
And Bill Campbell is a hugger, right?
That's
he just hugged everybody.
Yeah.
And I just saw on the news some cable guy hugged somebody and apparently inappropriately, and he's being sued. And the description was clearly he was inappropriate.
Right.
So I mean, it's and I just wrote about this hugging in the men's room. So I'm standing in the men's room
Yes.
after a presentation, right? And a guy eventually tells me that his son committed suicide 2 years ago.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm listening and also navigating this like overwhelming sort of
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
And finally, I figured if he's going to tell me something that
Yes.
intimate, I just moved in, man. I gave him a hug, and in his ear, I
Yes.
said, in his ear, and I'm half crying. I said, "I'm so sorry this happened to you."
Yeah.
And then of course, it was not a "I'm going to rub your back" kind of thing and all that, but it to
That's human
me,
connection,
yeah,
right? So I think that, like, listen, at the end of the day, though, I think a lot of that, what this boils down to is knowing what's, kind of like appropriate and genuine, like for empathy or compassion or sympathy versus like things that are totally flighty and not, I think that we know. I think we know. And I think that that's what's starting to surface now. And like, that's why I don't think I should stop hugging people either. But I know when it's genuine. Yeah.
yes, yeah. So an appropriate hug. I'm not I'm a Maine boy originally, and
Ah, my sister lives in Maine.
yeah. So we don't have emotions, and but so I used to tell people I'm not touchy feely, but honestly, I guess the truth of the matter is I've learned to practice because I think it's important. Even a handshake with a pat on the shoulder at the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean? Those
definitely.
types of physical contact. Just to reach out and touch somebody on the forearm. Like,
Yeah,
oh, that's such a cool thing.
yep.
It's just those simple things that I hope they don't go away. I think they're important.
No, I mean, I think we need human connection too. I think it's
Yeah.
just, again, thinking about and kind of responding to what everybody's comfortable with.